Recipes for training treats. An alternative to commercially prepared treats, perhaps since you know what ingredients go into them and because homemade ones are often much cheaper as well as better quality, is to make your own. Here are some suggestions. If you want to add nutrition, dust the meat bits with debittered brewer's yeast and kelp powder. Soaked millet, rolled oats, and cooked barley are good substitute for other treat recipes requiring wheat, since they are higher in protein and more easily digested by dogs. High-value heart. Probably the highest value treat and the best tolerated food I have found for most dogs is heart. Heart is a muscle meat and there's no gastrointestinal upset if a dog eats a lot of it. It is high in taurine and counteracts the effects of legumes in grain-free kibbles. Purchase heart of any species. Ideally source the meat from a local butcher who has access to grass-fed animals. Cut off excess fat for the larger animals and slice the heart into half-inch slices and cook on a no-stick pan without oil. Cook on both sides until there's just a little pink in the middle. Remove from heat and cut into cubes the size appropriate for your dog. If you have some left over, they freeze well but are not as tasty as if fresh cooked. Thaw for a few minutes before feeding. Barbecuing can increase their value. I use this for high distraction environments and behaviors that I need to be strong away from home, like recalls and alert behaviors. Avoid using in low distraction environments or you risk your dog refusing other lower value treats. They are that yummy. Chicken patty treats. For the most economically priced and easiest to prepare training treat, purchase frozen chicken patties. Sprinkle liberally with garlic powder and cook until done all the way through. Cut into 1/4 inch cubes and freeze. When needed, thaw for 10 seconds in the microwave and cut again into 1/4 inch cubes. That's about $3 per kilogram or $1.50 a pound. Liver treats. Cooked liver of any species, beef, chicken, pork, or turkey, and garlic powder flavoring. Sprinkle garlic powder on liver and use an outdoor barbecue to fry up liver slices. This prevents smelling up the house. And cut into strips, then tiny bits. Freeze in containers. This is very rich and should not be used more than about 1/6 of your dog's daily food intake. Most dogs will get the runs from eating too much. A few dogs will get goopy eyes from eating cooked liver. Moist meat treats. A bit more sloppy treat is slow-cooked chicken, turkey, duck, or roast. Buy the cheapest cuts and cook until the meat falls off from the bones. Separate bones from meat and freeze meat bits in containers, using wax paper or plastic to make layers that contain enough for one training session. Freeze. Thaw or microwave before using. For the cheap cuts of meats, such as beef or moose roast, cut into 3/4 inch steaks. Freeze until ready to cook, separating steaks with wax paper or plastic. Drop the bundle of them on the ground to break them apart and remove as many steaks as you want to cook. Thaw. Sprinkle garlic powder on both sides and let sit for a few minutes. Cook in a no-stick fry pan or barbecue until brown all the way through, then slice in 1/4 inch strips and freeze in containers. Cut into 1/4 inch squares after thawing. These meats also do well when ground up in a food processor and put in a food tube. Beef, chicken, turkey, patty treats. 1 pound of ground meat, 2 eggs, 1 to 2 cups quick oatmeal, add more or less depending on consistency, more for higher fat meats, garlic powder to taste. Mix all ingredients into a giant patty or several smaller ones and flatten to very thin. Cook on a no-stick fry pan until cooked. Flip and cook all the way through. Cool and cut into strips, then tiny squares, and freeze on a cookie sheet. Then scoop the bits into containers for freezing. This does have a somewhat crumbly texture, so it's best used at home. This recipe is more work and more expensive than the chicken patty treats above. Cheese bits. Use a mild cheddar or marble cheese and cut into 1/4 inch cubes. On hot days, these can get a bit mushy. Hard-boiled egg bits. Hard boil an egg or two for 10 minutes and let cool. Peel the shell off and cut the egg white and yolk into small pieces and freeze in a small container. Take a few out for training sessions and let thaw for a few minutes, or microwave for 15 seconds. The yolk is usually highly prized by dogs. It's a bit messy, but works well for in-home training. Egg variation. Make French toast and cook all the way through. Cut into 1/4-inch cubes and freeze until needed. You can also make a double egg omelette in a very small pan. Flip it over to cook thoroughly and cut into squares. Adding a bit of flour to it before you cook it helps it to stick together better. Kidney bean treats. Slow-cooked kidney beans are high in protein and do not cause gas in most dogs. They are very cheap and make an ideal, if somewhat sloppy, treat. Place 2 to 3 times as much water as beans in a slow cooker. Turn on high and cook until tender, about 4 hours. Use a slotted spoon and lift beans onto a cookie sheet in a single layer and freeze. When frozen, remove from freezer, let thaw for about 3 minutes, or run water over the back of the cookie sheet. Then lift with a flipper or butter knife and break into bits and freeze in containers. It looks like peanut brittle at this point. Place into containers and freeze. Take them out of the freezer for a few minutes before using during training. The juice makes a tasty additive to dry foods. If you mash them, you can use them in a food tube too. Have other favorite recipes? Please share them with us.